Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, coming to you from our studios at the Capital Region International Airport. And we're going to stay in mid-Michigan right now. We're going to spend a little time with our good friend Phil Roos. He's the director of EGLE, Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. And you have been busy, my friend. Welcome back to the show as always. It's good to have you. We've been experiencing here some pretty significant flooding in some recent weeks. More than 40 dams under stress at one point. Can you walk us through all that and where EGLE plays in that?
Yeah, you bet, Chris, and thanks for having me. Good to see you again. Uh, what we experienced just in the past few weeks, at least in some areas of our state, fairly widespread areas, approached a 500-year flood. That's becoming an all too common moniker for these events. It's a reminder of the increasing intensity and severity of storm events that climate models have long predicted, and we saw it here in the last several weeks. And it is, you're right, we had close to, I think it was about 45 dams across the state that were in some degree of peril. So that was the main thing that we were focused on. But at the same time, and what also affected our agency that we needed to respond to were some secondary flooding impacts, like wastewater treatment plants that
Mm.
were taking too much water in more than they could handle, so they have to discharge, and just making sure that's done in a safe way. Debris that's accumulated, culverts, roads flooding. And we had to just be monitoring all the drinking water across that region, which was, the upper two-thirds of the lower peninsula, and now a little bit of the UP. We continue to monitor. I think we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, but now we're really in recovery and damage assessment mode. And as it relates to the dams, we have a lot of dams in the state. We have 2,500 in total, 1,000 that we regulate. And in these situations, many of these are 100 years old. And so you get to after the fact, thankfully, most of them didn't fail, but we have to look at repairing them and what that's going to entail, or in some cases, removing them.
Phil, your team's been working kind of around the clock, really, with local, state, and federal partners. What does that coordination look like?
Well, I'd say just generally, what we saw was a kind of a beautiful thing under crisis, because we had great cooperation between local, state, and federal partners, and we had people all over the state jumping in to work on it. In terms of coordination, our state emergency operating committee was in operation. So they were coordinating all the various impacts. And then we had EGLE and DNR and other agencies that were more directly affected who were collaborating with them. So we had our own 1,000 dams or so that we had to keep track of with EGLE. But great cooperation. I think what we saw is everybody has a role. So in the Sheboygan Dam was a high profile dam. That is, EGLE does not regulate that dam. There are about 100 dams that generally the current or former hydroelectric dams that are regulated by FERC, Federal Energy Regulation, I'm saying it wrong here, Regulatory Commission. And we played a support role in there. So we had people up providing support, mostly technical support in Sheboygan. And we had DNR folks or other entities, U.S. Army Corps involved there, or lots of other places. And just it was amazing. And it just shows this affects us all. And I'd rather it not have the impact of this, but it's nice to see nonpartisanship thriving in a moment like this.
Well, it's amazing how travesty brings us together. So
Yeah.
the state invested 44.5 million in the dam risk reduction program, but those funds are kind of exhausted. What do you see going forward? There's a funding gap there.
Yeah, that's right. So we had the Dam Safety Task Force a few years ago. They had a bunch of recommendations. One of them was to build a more robust dam safety function in EGLE, which we did. We got funding for 8 people to cover 1,000 dams instead of 2 people. And that initial tranche of money, $45 million, I think it was for 3 years, but we had $200 million in asks for that 45 or $15 million each of 3 years, so 45 million total. We had 200 million in asks. And our estimates are that it's probably more than $1 billion to actually repair and bring to standard all the dams in the state. So we do have an issue. Part of it is making sure we have the tools to really bring oversight to those dams, but also long term, it's a funding issue as well.
Phil, honestly, we have like 30 seconds left, but there is proposed legislation to kind of fill this gap. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's legislation. It's in the House right now, and it was introduced by Representative Bill Schuette, House Bill 5485, for those of you tracking. That would implement some of the key recommendations from that safety task force to give us stronger dam safety. It would modernize the oversight that we have. It would increase accountability for dam owners. It would expand grant funding opportunities and provide new tools to identify and address risks before they become emergencies. So it would reinforce all of us, dam owners and the state, having the tools to be proactive about it, not wait for a big.
Well, we're looking forward to that going through. So we'll plan on you keeping us abreast of that. Phil Roos, Director of EGLE, the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. Thanks for being with us, buddy.
Thanks so much, Chris. Appreciate it.
All right, we're going to be right back. You've been watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman.